For 3,000 years, the mandate of heaven had a single, unbreakable rule: no woman shall sit on the dragon throne.
To the ancient world, a female emperor wasn't just a scandal. It was a glitch in the universe, a sign the world was ending.
Yet one woman didn't just break that rule. She strangled it. She murdered her own children to clear her path. She weaponized forbidden prophecies to rewrite reality itself.
She is Wu Zetian, the only woman in history to claim the dragon throne. Is she a bloodthirsty monster or the most brilliant system hacker in human history?
Today, we audit the blood-soaked ledger of the female phoenix.
We don't just tell stories. We audit the past. Welcome to Orient Obscura.
Let's start with the myth that's been repeated for 1,400 years. That Wu Zetian's rise to power was a fairy tale of forbidden love between a young concubine and the Emperor of China. If you look at the audit trail, that's not a love story. It's a reverse merger so precise, it would make a Wall Street banker blush.
Let's set the balance sheet. The year is 649 C. The Tang Dynasty Company Limited is less than 30 years old, and it's completely controlled by its founding shareholders, the Guanlong aristocracy. These are the wealthy military clans that helped found the Tang. They hold every seat on the board, every high office in the empire. The new emperor, Li Ji, later Emperor Gaozong, is the CEO in name only.
And into this deadlock steps Wu Zetian. At this point, she's nothing. She's a former concubine of the dead emperor, Taizong, banished to a Buddhist nunnery at just 26 years old. She has no money, no family influence, no political capital. But what she does have is the one thing Li Ji desperately needs: a weapon. A white glove willing to do the dirty work he can't.
This is the core of the reverse merger. Li Ji wants to take back control of his company from the board. But he can't attack the Guanlong clans directly. They built the empire. They have the loyalty of the military. They control the bureaucracy. If he moves against them, he risks a coup. He needs someone to take the heat, someone who has nothing to lose, someone who will absorb all the moral outrage of the aristocracy.
That someone was Wu Zetian. She returns to the palace, climbs the ranks, and in 655 CE, pulls off the first major play. She gets Li Ji to depose his Empress Wang and name her the new Empress of China. The Guanlong board, led by the emperor's own uncle Zhengsun Wuji, loses their minds. This is not just a new empress. This is a declaration of war.
And here's where the audit trail gets brilliant. Every single attack on the Guanlong clans comes from Wu Zetian, not the emperor. She's the one pushing for the purges. She's the one labeled ruthless and power-hungry. She's the one taking all the blame. In return, Li Ji gives her complete access to the levers of imperial power. By the 660s, when Li Ji is struck down by chronic illness, Wu Zetian is effectively running the entire empire.
This wasn't a love story. This was a transaction. A perfect reverse merger. Wu Zetian got the ultimate backdoor into the most powerful company on Earth. Li Ji got a weapon to break the aristocracy's monopoly on power. And by the time the board realized what had happened, it was already too late. The white glove was about to take over the entire company.
By 683 C, Li Ji is dead. Wu Zetian is now the Empress Dowager, the de facto ruler of China, with her two sons as puppet emperors. But she's not satisfied with being the power behind the throne. She wants to be the CEO, the sole emperor. And that's a problem.
Because the Tang Dynasty Company Limited has a non-negotiable clause in its founding charter. Only male members of the Li royal family can sit on the throne. Every single member of the Li family, every surviving Guanlong aristocrat, every old guard bureaucrat has a vested interest in keeping that rule in place. If Wu Zetian takes the throne, they all lose their shares.
So she faces a full-scale shareholder revolt. And her solution? It's one of the most brutal, yet logically brilliant plays in political history. She creates an entirely new system of external independent auditors. In the history books, We call them the cruel officials, men like Sua Yuanli and Lai Jun-chin. But to Wu Zetian, they were her audit team.
Let's break down why this was genius. The existing imperial bureaucracy, the court, the judges, they were all insiders. They were all tied to the Li family, to the Guanlong clans, to the old power structure. You can't ask an internal auditor to investigate the company's own board. They have too many ties, too much to lose.
So Wu Zetian hires outsiders. Men from the lowest ranks of society, with no family connections, no political allies, no wealth. Men who have absolutely nothing and everything to gain from her success. Their only job? To root out treason against the throne. To find, investigate, and prosecute anyone who opposes Wu Zetian's rise to power.
And they were given unlimited power. They could arrest anyone, from a low-level bureaucrat to a prince of the Li family, without a warrant. They used torture to extract confessions. They fabricated evidence. They turned friends and family against each other. But here's the key. Every single treason conviction they secured was legally documented. Every execution was signed off by the imperial court. It wasn't random violence. It was a forced corporate restructuring, done with full legal compliance.
Over 15 years, this audit system wiped out almost the entirely royal family. Hundreds of princes, princesses, and distant relatives were executed or exiled. Thousands of aristocratic families were stripped of their land, their titles, their wealth. The founding shareholders who had controlled the Tang dynasty for 70 years, they were physically erased, liquidated, removed from the cap table entirely.
This is the part that most history books miss. This wasn't just a tyrant indulging in bloodlust. This was a calculated, systematic removal of every single stakeholder who had an incentive to block her hostile takeover. By the time she was done, there was no one left to oppose her. No one with the power, the influence, or the family name to challenge her claim to the throne.
With the old board wiped out, Wu Zetian had cleared every physical barrier to the throne. But she still had one massive, insurmountable problem: compliance. The core operating system of ancient China was Confucianism. And in that system, there was a hard, unbreakable rule. A woman cannot be emperor.
Confucianism was built on a strict order of yin and yang. The emperor is the yang, the masculine, the active force. The empress is the yin, the feminine, the passive force. A woman on the throne wasn't just unusual. It was a violation of the natural order. The glitch in the universe we talked about at the top of the show. Every single law, every single tradition, every single religious and philosophical text in the empire said she could not do this. She had cleared the board, but she couldn't rewrite the company's founding constitution.
So what do you do when the core operating system won't let you do what you want? You don't hack it. You install a brand new system. A religious patch that overrides the old code entirely. This is her most genius move, the ideological short sale of Confucianism using Buddhism.
Buddhism was already widespread in China by the 7th century, but it was never the official state ideology. It was a parallel system, one that didn't have the same strict patriarchal rules as Confucianism. And Wu Zetian found the perfect loophole, a Buddhist text called the Great Cloud Sutra, or Daiyun Jing.
The original sutra tells the story of a female bodhisattva who is prophesied to be reborn as a wise, benevolent ruler of a great empire. Wu Zetian didn't just quote this text. She weaponized it, exactly as we teased in our opening. She commissioned her team of Buddhist monks to write an official commentary on the sutra, one that explicitly stated that Wu Zetian was the living incarnation of Maitreya, the future Buddha, that she was sent by the heavens to rule China.
This wasn't just propaganda. This was a full legal and theological compliance overhaul. Before this, her power came from being the widow of Emperor Jiaozong, the mother of the emperors. She was still tied to the Li family, still operating within the old system. Now, her power came directly from the heavens. She wasn't just a Li family empress who stole the throne. She was a living Buddha, a divine ruler with a sacred mandate to rule.
In 690 CE, she made it official. She abolished the Tang dynasty entirely, founded her own empire, the Zhou dynasty, and she took the throne as the one and only female emperor of China in 400 years of history. Every single official in the empire, every Buddhist temple, every village was required to display the Great Cloud Sutra, to acknowledge her as the Maitreya Buddha, to accept the new operating system.
This is the part that's almost always reduced to she used religion to get power. But it's so much more than that. She identified a fundamental flaw in the system that barred her from power, and instead of fighting it head-on, she introduced a new system that made her rule not just allowed, but divinely ordained. She didn't just break the rules. She rewrote the entire playbook.
Here's the question that has confused historians for centuries. Wu Zetian spent 20 years executing royal family members, purging the aristocracy, torturing political opponents. The upper levels of power were a bloodbath. So why didn't the empire collapse? Why did the Chinese economy grow? Why did the population increase? Why did the borders stay secure?
Most history books will tell you it's because she was good to the common people. But the Audit trail tells a different story. It's because she built a pure, unadulterated, KPI-driven meritocratic engine. She wiped out the old aristocracy, and in their place, she opened up the empire's equity to anyone with the talent to earn it.
Before Wu Zetian, the imperial examination system, the same one we broke down in our Yang Jian episode, was still limited. Most high offices were still filled by the sons of aristocratic families. Your birth determined your career, not your talent. Wu Zetian blew that system wide open. She expanded the imperial exams exponentially. She created new exam types. She opened testing centers across the empire. She allowed even the poorest commoners to take the exam. No family background required.
And this wasn't just a PR move. She meant it. If you scored well on the exam, if you had talent, if you could deliver results, you were promoted. Fast. Even if you were a farmer's son from the middle of nowhere. But there was a catch. A strict performance clause. If you failed to meet your KPIs, if you turned against her, if you were even suspected of disloyalty, you were gone. Erased. No second chances.
This is the ultimate performance-based equity plan. She didn't just give people jobs. She gave them a stake in the empire. For the first time, a poor farmer's son could rise to the highest office in the land, just by being good at his job. And why would these men ever turn against her? She was the one who gave them everything they had. The old aristocracy hated them. The Li family would strip them of their power if they ever returned to the throne. Their entire livelihood, their entire status, was tied to Wu Zetian's success.
This is why the empire didn't collapse. While she was purging the disloyal old guard at the top, she was pumping fresh, talented, loyal blood into the bureaucracy from the bottom up. The administrative machine never stopped running. In fact, it ran better than ever. Because every single official knew that their promotion, their wealth, their life depended on delivering results.
And the numbers back this up. During Wu Zetian's reign, the number of households in the empire grew by more than 50%, from 3.8 million to over 6 million. The economy boomed. She expanded the empire's borders into Central Asia, defeated the Tibetan Empire, and secured the Silk Road. Even while the upper levels of power were in constant chaos, the empire itself was thriving. Because her meritocratic engine was working exactly as designed.
This is the great paradox of Wu Zetian. She was ruthless, brutal, willing to kill her own children to hold on to power. But she was also one of the most effective, most efficient rulers China has ever seen. She built a system where talent was the only currency that mattered. And for millions of common people, that was revolutionary.
For 15 years, Wu Zetian ruled as emperor of the Zhou dynasty. She won every battle, she outmaneuvered every enemy, she built a thriving empire. She had complete, absolute power. But she couldn't solve one final, unsolvable problem. The ultimate paradox at the heart of her reign. The question of succession.
Let's look at the final ledger. She has two options for who to leave the empire to when she dies. Option 1. Her son, a member of the Li family. If she passes the throne to her son, the Zhou dynasty will cease to exist the second she dies. He will restore the Tang dynasty. Her entire life's work, her hostile takeover, her new empire, will be written off as a historical anomaly, a bad debt on the Tang dynasty's balance sheet.
Option 2. Her nephew, a member of the Wu family. If she passes the throne to her nephew, the Zhou dynasty will live on. The Wu family will keep the throne. But there's a fatal flaw here. In ancient Chinese tradition, only a son will worship his mother at the family ancestral temple. A nephew will worship his own father, his own ancestors. He will not venerate her. Worse than that, if she passes the throne to a male Wu heir, she is admitting that only a man can inherit the empire. She is completely invalidating the core of her entire reign, that a woman can rule China in her own right.
It's a no-win scenario, a paradox with no solution. If she chooses her son, her empire dies. If she chooses her nephew, her legacy dies. She spent her entire life breaking every rule, rewriting every system, outmaneuvering every enemy. But she couldn't outrun the 3,000-year-old patriarchal system she had spent her life fighting.
In 705 CE, at the age of 81, Wu Zetian is overthrown in the Shenlong coup, led by the very officials she had promoted from nothing. Her son is restored to the throne. The Tang dynasty is brought back. She dies later that year. And in her will, she does something no one expected. She gives up her title as Emperor of Zhou and asks to be buried as the Empress of Tang, next to her husband Li Ji.
And then, the final masterstroke. She leaves behind a blank stele, a giant stone monument, 6 meters tall, at her tomb. And on it, not a single word. No list of her achievements. No defense of her reign. No titles. No honors. Nothing. For 1,400 years, people have argued about what it means. Was she admitting defeat? Was she saying her achievements were too great to be put into words?
From our audit perspective, it's simple. She refused to perform a self-audit. She refused to write her own final ledger. She refused to let the patriarchal system that she fought her entire life be the one to judge her. She couldn't solve the paradox of her succession. She couldn't make her empire live forever. But she could take away the power of anyone else to define her legacy. She left the blank stele and let every future generation do their own audit.
Wu Zetian's reign is one of the most controversial in Chinese history. To some, she's a bloodthirsty tyrant who killed her own children for power. To others, she's a feminist icon who shattered the ultimate glass ceiling. But the audit trail tells us the truth. She was one of the most brilliant, calculating, and efficient political operators the world has ever seen. Every move she made, no matter how brutal, had a clear, strategic purpose.
Now it's your turn. What do you think of Wu Zetian? Is she a monster, a genius, or both? Leave a comment below and let us know which underrated figure from Chinese history we should audit next.
If you liked this episode, hit subscribe and ring the bell for new episodes of Orient Obscura every week. We don't just tell stories. We audit the past